The Northman is the latest film from director Robert Eggers. It stars Alexander Skarsgård as the Viking prince Olmeth, as he sets out on a quest for revenge against the man who killed his father. When I first saw the trailer for this movie, it instantly became one of my most anticipated films of the year. I was intrigued by the premise of a grounded Norse revenge story, when it seems like the only Norse stories being released nowadays are more fantasy-oriented. Once I found out that the story it's based on was the inspiration for William Shakespeare's Hamlet, I was sold on the premise. Now, I think that it is very important to clarify that this is not a fun fantasy adventure with epic action sequences throughout. It can be very brutal in the way that it portrays violence, and emphasizes just how merciless people could be during this time period. But despite the horrific acts of violence shown, it never felt overly gratuitous. As for the action sequences, while there aren't many throughout the film, they were all amazing to watch. There were 2 action sequences that specifically managed to stand out to me. The shot in the trailer of Olmeth catching the spear and throwing it back at his attacker helped sell me on this film, and the rest of that sequence showed off the true brutality of the Viking berserkers. I loved how this sequence wasn't overly graphic in its depiction of violence, yet still managed to show how deeply disturbing this way of life was. The other sequence that managed to stand out to me was the final duel between Olmeth and Fjolnir. I won't spoil what happens, but the atmosphere of this duel was just incredible. The story itself was a great tale of revenge. While the action takes a backseat once Olmeth reaches Iceland, it never felt like the pacing was being needlessly dragged out to me. I found that Olmeth's scheming kept the film engaging as he prepared to avenge his father and save his mother. I respect how this film remained mostly grounded, while also incorporating minor fantasy elements. These mostly consist of acts of witchcraft, as well as the presence of a cursed sword. While the gods themselves do not appear physically, there are things which occur that hint that they may actually exist in this world. These elements help add a sense of mysticism to the film, without compromising its grounded tone. This film also manages to look stunning. The landscapes used for filming were gorgeous, and the set and costume designs look accurate to the time period. I especially liked how the costumes aren't kept in pristine condition the whole time, and are covered in dirt and blood throughout the film. The acting here was also amazing across the board. None of the performances felt phoned in. Everyone seemed dedicated to bringing these characters to life in a way that felt realistic. Alexander Skarsgård fills the role of Olmeth perfectly. He has the physique of a Viking, while also being able to sell the emotional moments. Anya Taylor-Joy as Olga manages to complement Olmeth's bulk with her cunning schemes, while also being able to stand up for herself in this world of cruelty. While the rest of the cast is equally worthy of recognition, the one performance that truly managed to stand out was that of Bjork's. While her part is nothing more than a small cameo, her performance, mixed with the use of heavy shadows to conceal her character, perfectly captured the sense of otherworldly power that her character possesses. However, while the actors all do an amazing job of portraying their characters, the characters are written to be nearly unrelatable to a modern audience. But this isn't necessarily a bad thing. This isn't a glorified Hollywood fantasy about Vikings, but instead takes a more realistic approach to how it would be like living in this time period. As such, there really isn't any objectively good and evil side here. Many of the characters make decisions based on their own skewed sense of morality and justice. These decisions may seem wrong to us now, but given the context of the time period, they are perfectly understandable. My only complaint with this film is that there were times when it was hard to understand what was being said. This wasn't a large enough issue to make the film incomprehensible, but if you are watching it at home, then I would recommend turning on the subtitles. I personally loved this movie. It's a Shakespearean tragedy featuring Vikings that tries to stay true to the time period. This film definitely isn't for everyone though. What you get is a Viking revenge story that isn't afraid to embrace the culture of this time. It doesn't shy away from depictions of the slave trade, the mistreatment of women, or the pagan rituals practiced by these people, and serves as a reminder to what life was like over 1,000 years ago. But if you were at all interested in this film, then I would highly recommend going to see it. And if you would prefer something a little more lighthearted, then you can always wait until the next Thor movie comes out. But those are just my thoughts on The Northman. Let me know what you thought in the comments, and until next time, thanks for watching.